We're going to talk about mirroring. We've got kind of a small group here, but we are online, so I know a number of people listen to it later, and if not, you dance with the ones that show up, in my opinion. So I'm really looking forward to having a great discussion about mirroring. So I thought before we start, and Wendy's going to do a little bit of introduction for us, and has a handout that we can take, specifically on the Course of Miracles about mirroring. That's the theme for today. But before we get started, does anyone have any thing to share about how your Course in Miracles studies is going, or even anything with most of you are in the service this morning? Any comments or questions? We just want to take a moment to address those.
Right near my phone.
Now, I think if you just speak out, and Andy's telling me that they will pick up. So
I found someone online. I was just going to look her up. That I've been kind of following. She takes a chunk, chapter 3 or whatever.
okay.
And he just goes through each verse or each sentence, really.
Okay.
And kind of explains her interpretation of what it means. And it's been really good. She did take that first 50 things that was in the beginning of the book, I think, either chapter 1 or even 4. She went through all of those very had a video for each one. So it was pretty good.
Okay, wonderful, fantastic. Was it the Perrys by chance?
She doesn't give her name,
Okay.
but the name of her, of course, it's not. I think it's not going to work now. Hold on. It starts with blunt, like I'm a blunt spiritual.
Oh.
Let me just look her up real fast, and then I'll get back to you. Let's see. Let's just turn this off.
Yeah, I think the important thing is find a teacher that inspires you. Find a teacher that can help you grow and talks to you in a very practical way, and that's
Her name is the name of her site is Blunt and Upfront Spiritual Real Talk.
okay. There you have
But she's been studying for 30 years,
Good.
and she basically only used Ken Watson
it. Okay, yeah.
as her teacher and Gary Renard.
Okay.
So she said she didn't really study under anybody except for those two people.
Right. And those are obviously ones that I have predominantly studied under, would be the original person who helped Helen and Bill put together the Course in Miracles back in the 1970s, where, they both were out of Columbia University, and they were not getting along. They were psychologists, and basically Bill said there has to be a better way, and Helen agreed, and then came this download, she herself being Jewish, hearing this voice for God, which was identified as Jesus, and was able to say, hey Bill, am I going crazy? But I'm getting this download, and he said, put it in writing. She did shorthand. She then went into his office, and as she dictated from her shorthand, wrote the Course in Miracles, but never put any credit on it. As a matter of fact, when she died, she didn't even want to be identified as an author of A Course in Miracles. She very much, it was a labor of love, where Spirit was moving through her, and it was like Jesus was saying, okay, you have the Gospels, you have the Scriptures, well, guess what? This is what you got right, and this is what you need today. And and Ken was the individual who helped them edit it. Now, there is another Course in Miracles. It's a purple book, and it's not out of the Foundation for Inner Peace, which is the blue one. This is the original one from the Course, and they took a lot of Helen's original notes that weren't necessarily in this blue volume, but instead that larger purple volume. And I personally favor the blue one, but a lot of people favor the purple one, and that's fine. It's just, to me, it's like, this is the one that was edited, and sometimes when you get into a Course in Miracles online class, you can see people saying, well, it doesn't really say that the world's not real.
Yeah.
It just means that in your mind, that the reality is that there's only God and his teachings and so forth. I happen to be very much about Gary Renard's work, which is someday there will be a disappearance of the universe. When will that happen? The new heaven, the new earth, they cease to exist as separate states. In other words, as I spoke this morning here at Unity about the consciousness of the kingdom of heaven here on earth, well, the new earth, the new heaven, is when you cease to have heaven and earth. Instead, it's just heaven and that consciousness of bliss and knowing. So that's great. I appreciate you sharing.
One comment that I've also run across is, if you just get in one of those groups, you don't really know exactly what they're teaching, because some of them, it got way off the topic, and they were like fighting, on the message threads and everything, and I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and as soon
I'm
as
not doing that.
Yeah, as soon as you, for me personally, and I know that Tana, we belong to a Zoom, A Course in Miracles Zoom class every 2 weeks. When I'm in town, I join. And, it's just reading and it's inspiring each other. I think there's absolutely fantastic comments. Nobody's right. Nobody's saying, oh, you're wrong. And so as soon as when I get on a Facebook post and somebody's saying, no, they don't know what they're talking about, you basically have taken the Course in Miracles and made it a religion.
Yeah, exactly.
And Helen and with Jesus and Bill, they're very careful about, this is not a religion. This is a course in miracles. It is a course to change your perspective of where you live. And it's much like you can have that lower level perspective of this is only earth and that's all there is. You can have a higher consciousness and level of there's heaven that I can choose and love I can choose over fear, and then it has even a higher, how much higher you can bring yourself. So thank you for that. Anyone else? And then we'll, all right. Wendy's go. We're going to talk about mirroring. Now, this is a great concept.
Thank you, Reverend Karen. So mirroring fits right into the reality or unreality of the world. And mirroring is it's not unique to the Course. It's across all kinds of teachings. And I think everyone's had the experience of, if you're in a good mood, people respond better to you. And if you're not in a good mood, people don't respond as well to you. And that's a pretty direct mirror, and you know that it, or hopefully, I guess, you know that it has something to do with you and your state of mind. And so the Course goes one step further and very directly says, you're doing that. What you're seeing, you're projecting out something that's inside of you, and it's being mirrored back at you so you can see it and either go, good job, or, okay, I need to work on that. So that's, in a nutshell, you've probably heard the phrase, as within, so without, as above, so below. That's mirroring. And the Course also says that we are literally creating and co-creating the world through our thoughts. Our thoughts are the key. in all of this. And the good news is we can control our thoughts. Would anyone like to read the first quote here on the handout? Book lesson 16.
I have no neutral thoughts. The idea for today is a beginning step in dispelling the belief that your thoughts have no effect. Everything you see is the result of your thoughts. There is no exception to this fact. Thoughts are not little or big, powerful or weak. They are merely true or false. Those that are true create their own likeness. Those that are false make theirs. There is no more self-contradictory concept than that of idle thoughts. What gives rise to the perception of a whole world can hardly be called idle. Every thought you have contributes to truth or to illusion. Either it extends the truth or it multiplies illusions.
Thank you. So horses, could not, I don't think, be clearer about what's going on in here really has an effect out there. And that's kind of the key thing is getting on top of that. So, so our thoughts, so it's not like, it's not like my thoughts are creating the entire world, unless you go to the other level of there is only one of us here. But I think it's easier to think of your thoughts are maybe primary in your world, but all of us are co-creating the world. So when we look at, when you turn on the TV and you see a kitten, we've all co-created that lovely image, or a flower. You can say, wow, okay, great, that's mirroring some beauty in me. And when you turn the TV on and you see discord and disharmony and war, you can also say, okay, that couldn't exist unless I had somewhere, however small, a little bit of discord or disharmony or being at war within myself. And I'm seeing it. This is allowing me to see it so I can work on it. So mirrors can be what I call direct, kind of easy to decipher. So if I stole something from Karen, maybe borrowed in the very general, generous form of the word, and then the next day she borrows something from me, well, that's payback, right? That's a direct mirror. You do this to me, I do this to you. What comes around goes around. And that's one, and those are kind of the easiest ones to deal with because it's pretty obvious. Okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be borrowing things without Karen's permission. And mirrors, but unfortunately all mirrors aren't direct and they're not obvious. Mirrors can be symbolic. So maybe Karen borrowed something from me without my knowing it. And maybe that's a direct mirror and I need to look at that. Or maybe it's a symbolic mirror, in which case you look at the emotions that brought up. So maybe I feel like disrespected, or maybe I feel like a victim or something like that. So that's what I would call a symbolic mirror. You look at what not necessarily the thing itself, but what does that bring out in you? That's always worth exploring. And you can take that to extremes. You can my shoe came untied. Okay, well, is it an issue with me being careless? Is it an issue with me, let's see, symbolic, what could that mean? Something basic, maybe I need to go back to basics, or Which foot was it? It was my right foot. That's the forward foot. Maybe I'm not moving forward fast enough, or maybe it's the left foot. Maybe it's more emotional. Maybe it happened in my past. I mean, you can really. But the answer is in there somewhere. The answer is in there somewhere, and it's worth looking for. It's worth getting at the bottom of, because when it appears, if you can heal it, the universe says, good job. I'm not going to have to come back in a more extreme form. You got it. Way to go. So those symbolic, or like Louise Hay, has the book of what your different things mean, what your different ailments mean. If you've got an ulcer, it's not what you're eating, it's what eating you. Or maybe it was what you were eating. So again, it's, we have to kind of ferret out, is this a direct mirror? Is this a symbolic mirror? What does this all mean for me? But and you can get, don't get carried away with it, but pay attention to it, especially if something keeps happening. If my shoe keeps coming untied, that's the universe saying, knock, knock, knock. Hey, got a message for you. So it's a good thing to answer those calls. And mirrors can be time delayed, of course. So it might be the result of something from earlier in the week, earlier in your life, maybe even a past life, maybe when you were a child. You may not know. That may not be something you ever get to, but that happens too. You're like, I thought I had that shoelace figured out, and now I've gone back to basics, and I'm meditating, and I'm really, I'm doing this, and a week later the shoe comes untied again, and you're like, what's it going to take? And sometimes that's just, maybe you are doing the right thing, but there's just some momentum that's built up that you need to just kind of stick with it before you can completely resolve that issue. And those mirrors could be literal, they could be symbolic, and symbolic could be emotional or belief, those are very closely tied together. But mirrors are just a wonderful, wonderful tool for spiritual advancement. Using the world and the malleability of the world, of this unreal world, to get what Spirit is trying to tell you. And just as a quick refresher on healing, how do you heal it? So it comes up, how do you heal it? Karen stole my shirt, I feel like a victim, how do I heal that? Well, the first step, of course, is awareness. The second step would be, okay, what's the emotion associated with that, or the group of emotions associated with that? Is it anger, self-pity, violence, whatever it is? Just kind of hang on to that for a moment and ask yourself, have I felt this before? When have I felt this way before? And see what comes up. And and ask the Holy Spirit to help you. Try and get calm and ask for the Holy Spirit's assistance and see what comes up, see what is shown to you. And then, resolve to give it up. Say, okay, I'm tired of feeling like a victim. I'm ready to give it up. Oh, wait, I'm only 90% ready to give it up because I can still hold over Karen's head and get something out of that. Which I really do kind of like. I don't want to admit it. But 90%, I'm ready. But that 10% I'm going to hang on to and genuinely give it to God, give it to the Holy Spirit, and then refill with the opposite of that. So the opposite of feeling like a victim would be
I'm like a hero.
empowerment. Empowerment. So
Yeah.
breathe in empowerment, because nature abhors a vacuum. So giving up victimhood, breathing in empowerment, like we did in the meditation. Breathe it in, let it go throughout your body. Okay, anybody want to read the next little quote here? Workbook lesson 103. Let not my world obscure the sight of Christ.
I'll read it. Let not my world obscure the sight of Christ. I can obscure my holy sight if I intrude my world upon it. Nor can I behold the holy sights Christ looks upon, unless it is Christ's vision that I use. Perception is a mirror, not a fact. And what I look on is my state of mind, reflected outward. I would bless the world by looking on it through the eyes of Christ, and I will look upon the certain signs that all my sins have been forgiven me.
Thank you. That's a really deep one.
Yeah.
And what I look on is my state of mind reflected outwards. That's what we're talking about. That's mirroring. That's the world as a mirror. Perception, which is what's going on with us here, it's I'm perceiving that this chair is solid and that this chair is here. But I know somewhere deep in my mind that neither of those is true. There is only God. There is only love. And somehow I've managed to project it out into all of this. I have and we have. But that's perception. That's not knowledge. That's not the knowing of God. That's our perception of our illusionary world. So perception is a mirror, not a fact. And so I can do healing, or another really wonderful way to burn some of this karma off and move forward is I would bless the world by looking on it through the eyes of Christ. So I'm going to look on everyone and everything and do my best to see Christ in them, to see the love in them, to see the good in them. And you will see that mirrored back to you. That is another wonderful way to go about it.
It's almost like what comes back to me is not the definition of reality. It's what is happening inside of me that I'm sending out and coming back. So if it's fear, and something fearful comes back, to me it's almost like an algorithm. It feels out of control, it feels incidental, it feels like, where did that come from? You know, if you get some kind of harsh word or scary thing back. But then if you really start looking at it, you start thinking, I'm doing this to myself. I have sent something out that's now coming back to me. Sometimes it takes a while to get back to me.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
way here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But when I do a lot of YouTube, and I notice that if I open up my feed, if I open up YouTube, and there's all these negative videos in there, that's about me. That's what I've clicked on in the past.
Yes.
And for me, it
That's
was,
great.
you know, it's fear
That's
about
great.
Trump, because I'll say, okay, I'm just going to click and see what he said, because I want to know what crazy thing he said today. And I don't know why I want to know that, it just makes me more fearful and unstable. So, but I noticed that recently I've been clicking on things that are more positive, like art you know, art or doing art or creating art or how to do a sketchbook or whatever. And then I open up my feed, or dogs too, which I love dogs, dog videos. So then when I open up and it's all these positive things in my feed, I can see that I'm sending things out that are more positive.
That is such a beautiful
Yeah.
explanation of mirroring.
It is. It's funny how a technology can remind you of what's actually going on in the real world. You know, what's it's really not real. It's a simulation. So it's tricky that you think that this is flesh and blood and this is, you know, and really it's all kind of made up by our ego, our collective ego.
I have something that goes along with what you said, maybe. When I'm scrolling through things, I'll try to go past anything that has Trump on it real fast, so I don't even want to look at it. But am I just putting my head in the sand, or am I staying away from that negativity?
Well, what does it feel like to you?
It feels good to just go past it. Yeah, I don't want to
Okay.
hurt.
And the more you go past it, the less you'll get. So if you don't click on those, you probably won't get those. That's what I gotta get.
If it's a good feeling, if it's an empowering feeling,
Yeah.
you're on the right track.
That's awesome.
Well, on the news the other day, so I don't watch news very often, but I watched this thing about Trump. And it said that we're creating his win, his winning the presidency. And we're creating all these things by buying into it every day, watching it every day, feeling it every day. And it's not, it's mind-boggling to me that we have this kind of man that is going to be president of the United States. Now, I don't know, but I think I'm living in a different time because he was right in the very beginning when he said he could shoot somebody and still be followers. He's still happening. And now we're going through it. It's kind of sad. And I don't know where the morality of the whole thing is. I don't understand how we can have a person running for presidency that is wanted in this state, that state, and in all these lawsuits. And yet, if it happened to a normal, regular person, they'd be in prison. So,
It's a
I'm
miracle.
not disagreeing with a single
Yeah.
word that you said.
I don't want to go there, but when I go there, then I find my whole day negative.
Yeah.
So, I don't disagree with your assessment. What I would say is, start looking at that, at him, as a mirror. He is showing, that is showing you something, and it could be an indirect mirror, it could, you know, it doesn't mean that you're wanted in every state for something, certainly. You know, what is this bringing up in me? I'm clearly not at peace. I can choose again. And what I do is for that kind of thing, I look at that and I think, okay, what's not right within me? Because I couldn't see this if there wasn't something in me that's allowing me to see this. So, as hard as it is, and I agree it's hard, try and keep your center. If it drags you down, he's won. So keep your center and try to the best of your ability, and Karen's going to get into this in a little bit. Ho'oponopono is a really good tool for this particular thing, but try and see the Christ in him, because it is there, and it is there. He is a person. We're all going home together. It's all or nothing. And so what can I do? What can I do in my heart and in my mind to heal that part of me that's contributing to that discordance out there?
Well, I think what happens with me is that I had a very traumatic childhood. And I had a very domineering person. And I think that's what it triggers. It triggers me like crazy because I tried my whole life not to be that way. But there are different states that I can get in that I just know that's not me. And I catch myself, and then I say, that's not me.
Excellent.
That is a behavior, that is a pattern behavior from the past. But I see that in him, and I think that's what is so defeatist for me, because there wasn't anything I could do about it. Right. When I was young. Nothing.
And I'm so sorry.
You know.
I'm so
And I
sorry.
think that's, in my case, that triggers me with my son too. Because my son is, I think my son has been depressed since he was born. He's always trying to fit in, and he's always in trouble, and now he's in a lot of trouble, and he might end up in jail. So my mind is constantly going over negative things, unless I catch myself.
And that's part of this. I mean, we all just do the best that we can, and no one's perfect. The more you can catch yourself, the better you'll feel. You want to talk about Ho'oponopono? Because that's really a good.
You ready for me?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, bye.
Yeah. Because it's a good fighter.
So let me tell you what I've been thinking about as I've been carefully listening to Wendy. I was hanging on to her every word.
You're thinking, what'd she steal from?
I just a few thoughts. One is, if we remember that we are created in the image of God, which means that it's not like God is a person that's in a dwelling place called heaven and just waiting, for us. He's not pulling strings to punish people. He's not judging people. God is only really love. And so if you get the sense of God has created me and I'm the image of God, I'm an expansion of God. So everything God is within me because that's how he expanded. And what the Course in Miracles, if you go back to the beginning of the Course in Miracles, it says, you are only one with God. But you had this mad moment at one point, and you thought you separated from God. At that point is you basically have gone to sleep. You are, as all of us, are sleeping in heaven, if that's the place, above the sky, wherever, with God. But because we're sleeping, we have to basically awaken ourselves. And we're dreaming. So we're on a journey to wake up, but at a distance that we've never left. We're still there, but we're sleeping.
And Trump's in our dream.
And we are so powerful because we are created in the image of God. We are so powerful that we've created this whole world that we are taking basically God within us, because we can't go anywhere without God, right? That's the light in us. And we're experiencing this earth. And we have taken that concept of separating with God so much, we actually created this ego, the I, that made us think that we're a body. And then we separated so that we're all different races, we're all living in different places, and we're so fractured that the way to wake up is we wake ourselves up because there's only one of us here. So in the dream, we have to wake up, all of us individually, until we collectively wake up. And then the disappearance of this earth, why would we need it? We no longer need it. So that's the mission, if you will. So I think of it in this way that I think might be helpful. I am only really light. And I really believe when God said, let there be light. If he wrote the Bible, I've said this before, unity. If God had written the Bible, he would say, let there be light. We're created as the son, daughter. There's no gender in God. There's no real gender in us in that way. Let there be light. And then he says, it is good. That's his judgment on us, if you have a judgment at all. It's only innocent, no matter what. You're only good. And so in that, it's like we're born of this light, and that's truly who we are, which is symbolic for us in the heart, because, you know, we think of our heart as our place of feeling, our connection between people, and so we have this light, and what we do is every morning, it's almost as if we just wake up and we decide to wrap ourselves first in skin, in a garment of skin, that gives us all different shapes, all different sizes, all different colors, and then we decide, in our world, we put clothes on to go out, but we always grab our shield and our sword, right? And that's how we approach each other. So the shield, to me, is the veil, if you will. It could even be the garments, if you will. The veil, the curtain. The shield is the shadows. Sometimes people talk about shadows. It's like, it's what's keeping me from seeing your pure light, is I have this shield. And I have this sword. And usually the sword is, a judgment, right? I see you, and now I judge you. And when we are on the spiritual path, what we learn is that this shield that we're carrying, that's hiding everything about us that we don't want people to know, we start creating it as children, because it's like, if I really showed people my true self, I wouldn't be accepted. If I showed my true self without the shield, then people would see how undeserving I am. And it's your beliefs are kind of wrapped in the shield. And what we do on the spiritual journey is that we learn to heal the things that we've wrapped around ourselves. So the more that we've wrapped around ourselves, the longer it's going to take. Because the more opportunities we've had to create more hurts, more victimhood, more concepts and thoughts, the harder the shield is. It's almost like it's got different layers, right? So say you drop, though, you get to the point where I really understand I'm only the light. So I'm going to heal all of this shield that I have. And when I stand in the world, I'm going to put my shield down. This is what Jesus did. He's going to put his sword down, and he's just going to be the light. So there's no physical body, right? But all the people around him have their garments, have their shield, have their sword. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to attack him. So say that I see you, and I'm going to shoot my arrow at you. Now people who have their shield would say, hey, I didn't shoot anything at you. I'm the victim here. But Jesus is like, oh, go ahead. Where's that arrow going to land? It can go right through me. I don't have a body. This is part of how he was able to resurrect. I don't have the body. The body's not real. People thought, oh, the wages of sin is death. He says, there's no death. There's no loss. There's no death. There's no body. I'm just the pure light. So no matter how many arrows are shot, they're just like We can do this all day. You guys, you take as much time as you need. But I'm telling you, you're the light. Just like me, you're the light. And this is what the Course is saying to us, right? It's saying there's no death, there's no loss, there's no real world. The reality is only your light. So all the time that they're shooting, eventually, he says, is your arm tired yet? And you can decide, right? No, I'm going to just keep shooting people. Just going to keep shooting. But every time they're shooting, their shield's getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And that's the mirroring. Because all of a sudden now the light is before them. That means they've done something right to be able to see. And once they begin to see that, then that's when the shield can drop and the swords are put down. And then eventually they unwrap, and all it is light. And what happens when you walk in a room and you turn light on? What happens? Does the other light that you already have on disappear? What happens to the darkness when you turn a light on? Where's it go? Does it go into the bathroom then, next to the bedroom? You turned the light on in the bathroom? Did it go back in the bedroom? Where'd it go? It just, yeah. And that's what happens. Your light joins with my light. Your light joins with my light. Your light joins with all of us. Your light. You see, now we have this circle of light. That's what changes the world. So mirroring is, I could not see you. There's only one of us here. You understand? Because we fracture, thinking they're all this. So we have to joining, and joining is coming together and sharing a collective sense of we are the light. And it is the light workers that will, in fact, change the world. And I think when we're looking at whoever it is, Christ, what he was able to do, Jesus, and us, Christ, which means the God within us. You see, when he was looking at any person he met, he never saw their bodies, kind of. I mean, physically, I don't know if he saw it or not. I mean, he obviously had some sense about this is John, this is Peter, this is, those kind of things. He respected the illusion, but he never, ever looked at people without just seeing the light. And that's how he was able to heal. That was the miracle. Because he was able to say, I see you as you truly are, which is only whole, only complete, only the light. You think you have this hemorrhaging of blood. I don't believe that. You think you're blind and you can't see. I don't believe that. I mean, that was his belief. He held his sense of identity and understood that his identity was completely the same as anyone he looked at. And he held the Christ for them. And he was saying, I'm going to do everything I can to be the light of the world. And that's what he was able to do. And this sense of mirroring is we're dreaming, making up our world. A world that's different than the way we were created. And we are such powerful creators that you can say you create your own reality. Well, what that means is just as you believe, as you're thinking, you're actually manifesting that at some point in your life. Some religions call that karma, right? So it means that I wake up in the morning and I always say that you have to choose, I am or I am not. That's your choice. First thing in the morning. I am as God created me, or I am not as God created me, to use A Course in Miracles concept. That's why it's so beautiful. I am as God created me. And if you say I am not because you have like this annoyance going on or something that's irritating you, at some point you've now created your reality, And that annoyance is going to turn into somebody's going to cut you off while you're driving. Somebody at the grocery store is going to just basically be annoying. And most of us, as Wendy was saying, you don't make the connection always because it doesn't happen. There's a time lapse often. So when somebody threw a rock at Buddha, and they said, oh, Buddha, why did they turn a rock at you, the enlightened one? And he said, yeah, but I hadn't always been the Buddha. You see, he was saying, I've had lifetimes before. And it may catch up with me on this lifetime. And the Course in Miracles doesn't really talk a lot about reincarnation, right? But there is some indication that that is going on. Because you see, you got to keep living on this earthly experience until you wake up. And enough of us wake up, then we'll change the entire world. So why do we have disasters going on? Why is there flooding? Why is there earthquakes? Why is there that kind of... It's because of it's consciousness. Everything in this world is consciousness. So if enough of us decided we're not going to have that kind of consciousness to shake us up, flood us out, hurt each other, be egotistic, trying to attack anybody that has a different opinion, if we all just dropped our shields and dropped our swords, this whole universe would disappear in a state of law. And this is what Wendy mentioned, Louise Hay, and I like this little book of Heal Your Body, because I think the Course too says there is no sickness, right? Yet we all have these things going on with our bodies. So if you take the concept of mirroring, you don't want to go crazy. Sometimes you just cut your finger and you need to put a Band-Aid on it. Respect the illusion, put a Band-Aid on it. But you might want to give a thought of, what am I cutting out in my life? How am I not moving forward? I never ever have vehicle problems, and I had a vehicle problem on my way back from my mom's. And, it's kind of like, at that point, it's like, well, okay, what am I not getting right? Just enough of a thought. And it's like, sometimes things come to my mind, and sometimes they don't. But I'm willing to heal it the best I can. And we also are on this earth, so I just want to say, we all have to die of something, all right? So it's kind of like, oh, I really tried to heal it, but you know what? I still have that darn, arthritis in my knee, or I've got this other, issue, and you do everything you can to take care of it. Don't drive yourself crazy with it, but just know there's no sickness. There's no sickness in the consciousness. But it often can help you, and it can, if you're willing to think about it, you can realize you're mirroring something else going on. I mean, I can almost, unfortunately, so many, particularly women who have been abused as children, end up with usually some kind of urinary cancer. And it's sad. It's very sad. It could be as simple as, how come, like with your knee, how come I'm not moving forward here? And what's going on? I mean, when I was working at the city of Phoenix, it was a very difficult time after 2008 when the economy really kind of crashed. And some of the leadership, actually executives, ended up with serious jaw issues. And I thought, yeah, because nobody can talk. It's only the new boss, which was very different than the old boss. And it was my way or the highway kind of thought. And it's like, I wasn't surprised. If you feel like you can't talk, you can't express, and yet you still want a pension, you have to stick out until you got your years of service. Yeah, almost all our jaws were like crunching at that point, because nobody could say it. You see what I mean? So the idea of mirroring, I think that that the concept of Ho'oponopono is a great way of helping us in that consciousness of I get to choose how I perceive the world, because that's the whole Course in Miracles, is change your perception. If you're not at peace, it's because you've decided wrongly. Therefore, get yourself in peace and change your perception of what's going on. And Ho'oponopono, which is an Hawaiian prayer, that pono means make right, but you notice it's ho and then pono, make right for me and make right for you. So when you're faced with a situation that needs really true forgiveness, you realize any time somebody is hurting you, there's a sense of, there's something in me, as Wendy was saying, that created this. Don't go crazy with it, but recognize I have a responsibility in everything that's going on, because I am the creator of this world that I'm living in. And therefore, Ho'oponopono says, I'm sorry to the person that's you're forgiving. And you say, I'm sorry I set you up. Please forgive me for having set you up. I love you as a true light you are. Thank you. Thank you for bringing the opportunity for me to make it right, and for you now to be free. It's the whole idea of we are, in fact, the light projecting through the script, and we're watching the movie. If you remember in Alan Cohen's book, which I know you're reading or have read, Tana, about making a Course in Miracles Made Easy, he tells that story of the first time that films had just come out, and they turned the lights off, and they had a white sheet, and they were showing the picture of the Indians shooting about ready to shoot the cowboys, and a guy stood up, and he shot his gun through the sheet, and then they turned the light on, and everybody's laughing because the sheet's obviously just white. It was a film. He so thought he was real, that he was really getting shot at, that he shot back. You know, it's that idea that that's what's going on the script. And so if you look at that, you step up and you say, what's my responsibility to everything that's going on? So we have, you know, a wannabe dictator that could destroy our democracy. Doesn't mean it's not important to us, but we're like, what's my responsibility in this? Well, there must be a part of me that says that there are times when I want to just blurt out, vomit. I want to call somebody a name and label them. My newest favorite one now is numbnut. I got it when we went to Australia, because our Australian friend always said, well, those numbnuts, meaning the politicians. I thought, well, that's good. So, but, you know, it's kind of okay, but I have that. But if it's driving me to the point where I want to go wring somebody's neck, if you will, I'm going to shut it off now. It was a real lesson for me, and it's a lesson for all of us. The same thing with the pandemic. None of that stuff is consequential. It's because that's our consciousness collectively. The only thing that would change it is our collective consciousness saying, we want a better way. Getting back to the Course in Miracles. I choose, like Helen and Bill, to find a better way. What's the better way? It's love and forgiveness. It's love and forgiveness. Never lose sight of the light that you are, and the light that you bring to the world. And when you're not at peace, it means you're not in you literally are saying, I'm insane. I'm not in my right mind. And if I'm not in my right mind, only insanity can pursue. But I'll be the one to choose. I will choose to be loving. And that's where the Course in Miracles says, everyone is either displaying love, or it's a call for love. Now, we can be, as all of us, these great light workers, love workers, if you will, and sometimes, because of our strength, we're going to get someone in our life that's calling for love. And that person may not be there because they're mirroring something in us as much as we are able to be their assistants. Do you want to talk about that or thought about that? Because I do think there are people that come into our life that aren't necessarily always mirroring exactly everything in us, but we are able, because our consciousness is at a level that we can reach out and give loving attention to, and we literally become that light for them in mirroring. Because it's a two-way street. However, if what's going on with them is more destructive for us, I think at that point we need to, then they're becoming, we've got to look at what's going on inside of me.
Is that kind of like the Pharisees that came to Jesus? He didn't draw those Pharisees to him. Or maybe he did, but not in a way that mirrored what he was sending out. It was more like they were needing to hear that message or something, so that they were drawn to him.
Yeah. Well, in the case of the Pharisees, reference to those Jewish scholars, really, that in the New Testament, that in some ways they're kind of given a bad rap, I think, in the scriptures, because Jesus himself was really a Pharisee, most likely. A lot of people talk about him being part of the sect of the Essenes. I don't know. I know he wasn't part of the Sadducees. The Sadducees were those that were politically appointed to be in the temples, kind of have control over the temples and the sacrifices and those kinds of things, and was a sect that was very much they got the political appointments, if you will, because they were so friendly with the Roman government. But the Pharisees were actually men who were scholars. But the time of Jesus coming was a new age time. I mean, if you look at the zodiac signs, when Moses comes down, and it's kind of a diversion, but I think it's a good one to look at for our time now. So you got Moses coming down from the mountains, and remember, and they had the golden calf. Do you remember that with the Israelites? And that made perfect sense, because the calf was in fact part of the zodiac sign. And then that switched to the ram, or the what do you call it in the Jews? The shofar, that they blow the, what's it? Shofar? Okay, the blowing of the ram. Jesus comes and he is a representative of Pisces age. Right? You see? So the Pharisees are in this mindset of a whole almost different age, and Jesus is saying, hey, this is a new time. The kingdom of God is at hand. That's what he was saying. He was saying, hey, you're thinking these things, but we're changing into a different consciousness here. And if you follow me, you will have the life predominantly be happy. Be happy, no matter what's going on with you.
Yeah, the Pharisees were just doing their job.
They were doing it right.
But
right.
They did it in a way that was structured so that it didn't allow for
Exactly.
It was like the law.
Exactly. And they did allow for the new message often to come, as we can tell. But how many of them didn't allow it and how many of them did, I don't know. I'm just saying that we don't know much.
Nicodemus was a Pharisee, and he opened up
Right.
to the new.
Right. But the only thing with him is that he didn't want it to be seen with Jesus during the day. So I know you're saying some truth. I'm not quite brave enough to stand up and say, well, let's really listen to you and be open to it, but I'll come to you at night. Because I know, again, I know that I can learn something from you, and I'm willing to learn. Yeah.
And now we're going into the Aquarius.
Exactly, that's where I was going. You gotta remember, we're going from the age of Pisces now into the age of Aquarius. So it's zodiac, if you look at the zodiac signs themselves, every time there's a change in age, there's a lot more disruption. Frankly, that's why Wendy and I have stepped up and said, we're gonna start teaching the Course in Miracles the best we can, and we're gonna start a class at the Spencer Pride Community Center starting next Sunday to help people just live a more peaceful life, because it's a time where the earth's going to shake a little more. And we're seeing it, whether that means the actual earthquakes, some will say yes, but it certainly means political, what's going on, because all of us in this room have at one point, based on what's happened with the pandemic and the changing of the political forces and what we've seen in the insurrection on January 6th and what we're seeing folding out every day, new information coming to revelation, is it's a really scary time. But we have to remember the Course is saying it's mirroring. It's mirroring. Even the little bit of fear I still have, which all of us have, but are we willing to look at that? And okay, wow, I'm really kind of scared about, what could happen was, they could try to unmarry me.
Or put you in jail.
Or whoever gets labeled, and whoever gets labeled different.
That's scary.
Based on, the political forces that are in power. Well, why is that? Well, they get power and then they want to release power. And then you have to say to yourself, okay, when is it that I really want to manipulate and control and be in power, which is I want the results I want, instead of the consciousness of no matter what, I need nothing. I have everything because I am the light of God. I am as God created me. And my responsibility is to do the most loving, kindest action needed. And sometimes that's saying no. I'm sorry. No. In my house, our house, we don't listen to continuous political jabbering. We don't listen to people calling each other names. We will take it in as needed or as wanted, but no, that's not on. That's not blaring in my house. This is when it's like, these are the healthy boundaries. And why can we get there? Because I wake up in the morning, let's go for a full circle. I wake up in the morning and I say, I am as God created me. If I said I am not, that would mean I could become a victim. It means that when you attack or throw those arrows, I'm going to feel it. And I'm going to be a victim. And I can either blame you or I can attack you back. Or I can just say, look at who I really am. No shield, no sword of judgment. Are you done yet? This is what Jesus actually meant. Turn the other cheek. How can he say that? Hey, doesn't hurt me. Slap me a good one. Yeah? It's really, it's an amazing thing, I think. It's like, wow. Wow. You have anything to add on mirroring or? No, okay, well, we got about just a few minutes left, and these are just little cards, I think, of the quotes that are on your sheet. And I thought, you know what? If you want to, you can select one and read it, and let's just talk about it. Maybe whichever one. I've shuffled them all up. There's no magic trick to it. It's just, you just
Place any bets?
choose one and, huh? Yeah, yeah.
That term, you can't put new wine in old wineskins.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a very good one.
It's just an interesting phrase.
Right, right. Well, and that was a change of the ages.
Yes.
Yeah. You can't take now what's new and put it in those old skins because the news is the old
But
can't
you
hold
could.
it. Right,
You could, but it wouldn't taste as
right. Or you'll break the skin will break and won't hold it.
good. Oh,
You see, because you need the elasticity of the new wine. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's just absolutely fabulous to think. That's a great way of thinking about at that age of time. That's what he's saying. Yeah. And I think now, with this change of the Aquarius, if you know anything about the zodiac sign, when you hear Aquarius, what do you think of?
That's all.
The song, exactly. Yeah, the age of Aquarius. In other words, love and peace and, but you can't get there without people getting shook up enough to say, oh man, there's got to be a better way. I mean, Helen and Bill got there because they were really not getting along. So bad that Bill, as Helen's supervisor, just said, there's got to be a better way.
And as
And
bad
their
as
willingness
yeah.
was able to
And as
change.
bad as we think it is, it's been pretty bad, with the whole situation. This is also, we're on the precipice of the new earth.
Exactly.
And there's more people now that are awakening than ever have been at
Right.
one time.
Right.
I mean, we can,
Right.
I started reading Fillmore, Charles
Fillmore,
Fillmore. And, I mean, they had some very forward-thinking thoughts
Exactly.
100 years ago
Exactly.
that are just now starting to be more commonplace.
Right.
That took 100 years.
Exactly. Yeah. And especially in the area of sickness. How can I be created in the image of God and be sick to the point where I'm non-functioning?
Yeah.
You
And
see?
then the Louise Hay came along and
Exactly.
things like that. And like Charles Fillmore was speaking, and he didn't even, things hadn't even been discovered about quantum physics yet that he was speaking about. He had no words to describe what we take for granted now as far as nuclear, just that there's only space and
Oh, right.
things like that.
Right.
He didn't have any really words to talk about it because it was just a theory at the time, and no one had ever proven those things. So it's really interesting.
Right. Very
It's
interesting.
an exciting time.
Yeah. Anybody want to read theirs? And then we'll just randomly talk. This is about mirroring.
every interpretation you would lay upon a sibling is senseless. Let the Holy Spirit show the Holy Spirit to you and teach you both the Holy Spirit's love and the Holy Spirit's call for love. Neither the Holy Spirit's mind nor yours hold more than these two orders of thought.
All right. Got any thoughts about that, or?
I think I judge all the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and most of us do. I mean, in part, it's what gets us to the next step in this world. But what I heard that say was, you think you're seeing and judging a certain situation as it is. If you're willing to step back and say, show me what this means. I'm willing to have a different interpretation, a different perception. And the Spirit, which is, by the way, in that elevator I spoke about this morning, the elevator always has a help button. The help button is the Spirit. I think I'm going to speak on March the 3rd. I think I'm going to talk about the elevator and that help button. Because the help button is the spirit where you're basically saying, help me see this as you would see this. Help me get a different perspective about what's going on. So I lose my job. I'm at my job. And they fire me. Some people will say, I didn't do anything. It came out of the blue. I cannot believe it. They're letting me go. Yet months, years even, before that, you're like, I hate this job. I hate this job, right? If you're willing to say, help me see this again, as I'm now looking for a new job, let me get over the old stuff. Well, you didn't have the courage to move forward until you were pushed.
Forced to.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you can step back and say, help me to see this as you'd have me see it. Oh yeah, you know what? I really never liked that job very much. And guess what? I'm now going to find something that matches more on my purpose in life. I want to feel worthwhile or helpful or of service. And you know, I'm going to be doing that. I'm really miserable that, you know, maybe I got into it because mom and dad wanted me to be this. I can't stand being this. Yeah, I'm educated in it, but I don't want to do that. I want to be an artist. I want to be in music. You know, it's like, help me to see a different perspective. And if you're tuned in and tapped in enough, you'll say, and making lots of money in the sense of prosperity, that I don't have to be poor without anything. You know, so I think it's a great one. Oh,
When you meet
did you read all of them?
No.
Oh, okay, you don't want to? Okay.
When you meet anyone, remember it as his holy encounter. As you see him, you will see yourself. As you treat him, you will treat yourself. As you think of him, you will think of yourself. Never forget this. For in him, you will find yourself or lose yourself.
That's a really
It's a perfect one for me. I mean, it is a perfect one. My son always says I'm his best friend, and I say, I don't want to hear this. I don't want that job. Because I see so much sadness, so much depression, and so many things in his life that are similar to how I've always felt because of my trauma. And so I have a really hard time dealing with him, especially when he goes on and on and on, ADHD. He goes on and on, and he'll interrupt you in the middle of a conversation because he has to get his thoughts out before he forgets them. And it's a real taxing thing, but now I see that I'm supposed to be looking at this in a different light. And I'm going to really try, but this is just perfect.
And you know, the best thing you can do, that we can do for anyone, is address the shadow of the shield that we put around us. So I've had this childhood, and I'm not making light of this. I mean, we've all been there in different ways, but that stuff hurt, or I didn't have the skills at the time as a child to process this in a way that has been helpful. So these feelings of guilt or shame or unworthiness or not deserving, I have to peel them off, you know, one layer at a time. It's kind of like the onion, you know, layer. But eventually, if I get to enough onion layer, there's no onion.
All right.
Right? There's only light. There's only, you know. And so the best thing I can do is be absolutely clear about who I am. And not take on, I mean, a lot of that is just not allowing anyone else to manipulate you or control you by hooking you into your sense of undeserving or unworthiness or your guilt or your shame. But to be enough and stand and say, I am as God created me, you are as God created. And how do we express this? We don't say, oh, you know, God created you in light, you're only light, you're only love. No. But we just say, you just do the next right thing. Son, daughter, I think of you as a person of strength. I think of you as a person that can make the right decisions. And I'm going to help you within a way that doesn't take any of my standing where I am, in my I am, as God created me. I will help you. And sometimes I'll say no, because I don't see you that way. I don't see you weak. I don't see you vulnerable. I don't see you as an addict. So I'm going to hold strong on that and mean it. But the best thing we can always do is be the person asking the Spirit to help us. It's interesting that the wording there was like, help me to see what? The Holy Spirit in you? Or?
Never forget this. In Him, you will find yourself.
Okay, in Him you will find yourself, you know. And I mean, there's sometimes you just say, holy shit. Well, that's when you change it to holy shift, right? Shift my perception, because you can't throw it at me. It's not going to stick, kind of thing. It's a fantastic one, yeah.
I do too.
Okay.
Whenever you deny a blessing to a brother, you will feel deprived, because denial is as total as love.
Wow. What do you think?
So if you don't want to, it's a gift you give yourself. So if you're denying someone else, you're denying yourself. So love is just like we kind of understand the concept of love. What I send out is what I get back.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes on both sides,
Mm-hmm.
which is anything negative I send out, I get back.
Right.
So I only have myself to blame for a life of, or denying myself, if that's the way I'm going to be.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the person I'm going to be, then that's what I'm going to get back, not negative. But deny a blessing too. Why would people deny blessings?
Well, I mean,
Jealousy.
Jealousy, yeah. I see what you're saying,
competition.
yeah.
And to me, oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
there's people that, have you ever noticed some people are like upset when someone else wins?
Yeah,
Because they
Yeah.
wanted to win,
right.
and they can't get past their own feelings of disappointment to be able to share in the blessing of that person
Exactly.
winning.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right,
okay.
right. Yeah.
That reminds me of another core course concept, which is to have something, you have to give it,
Right, give it away,
which only makes sense when you think of it in terms of love.
yes.
When you have love and you give love away, you're increasing love.
And forgiveness too. Giving forgiveness increases forgiveness. I love that.
Yeah, that's quite wonderful. And I like that concept of, you know, in the world, it's, I have $1, I give it to you, I've lost $1.
Scarcity.
Scarcity, yeah. So I've given something up because I've given it. In the world of spiritual development and the consciousness of Christ, I give you $1, no strings attached, but I know I will receive, and the scripture actually says tenfold.
Amazing.
Pretty
Yeah.
good return.
Very good return. And this is in unity where I always have something to give. And I give it without attachments. I mean, it's actually a wonderful concept. And I love that it said, am I going to give a blessing? I don't know about you, but you know, we often have a fire ceremony, and you know, we bless our land, the trees, the spring, you know, and then we go into different people, and that's when we do the prayer list for unity and among other groups that we belong to. And, you know, it's like to be able to really walk the world. I don't know about you, but if I have a dog come up to me in a park or on a sidewalk, or if I see a cat, when we travel the world, we see a cat particularly, you know, we just always give it a blessing. Wendy does a little blessing for any of the roadkill that she sees on the side of the road to kind of help their spirits move along. But to be able to actually live your life in that kind of concept, I mean, it does come back. There's just no other way to explain it. I mean, we've been on this journey long enough that we can just give very concrete examples of how extending love is in fact an extension, and it's always multiplied. Giving a blessing is always multiplied. And I found myself with those few politicians that I won't name, but I could. When I read something about them, I now bless them. I didn't used to.
Yeah, I like that.
But I'd read their name, and I would say, and may God bless you. Or I extend the light. Something that works for you. And that's been actually very, very helpful to me. Namaste, right? Right. The peace I have, the light I see in you, namaste. I see. It's a wonderful thing, namaste. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else got another one to read, or I think we'll just go ahead and wrap up then. Wendy, you got any closing remarks on anything we left out? You know, you think about this mirroring now, you know, it's like, it's very powerful. It's as your thoughts are. So the awareness of your thoughts is always the start. And a way to get into the consciousness of true peace and joy and love is always a stillness. If you notice, it's always quiet your heart, quiet your mind is what it says. And if you're able to get into that consciousness, that quiet consciousness, and kind of in just the place where you have no thoughts, and that's part of, I think, in meditation, why you have us breathe in. Do you notice if you breathe in, you can't hold a thought and breathe in like that at the same time? You can't hold a thought. So that's why you have, right? You breathe in, and then you kind of just release any thoughts that come, or you just kind of let them pass, because it's in the stillness, it's in the quiet, the openness and the spaciousness that puts you in a place, in a different consciousness. And once you're there, you're able, in that kind of meditation, communion with God, is when you really are open to, and what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? Or what's the next right thing to do? And often we don't know until we're in that quietness. And it's at that point we were able to say to someone, I truly bless you. I truly see your light.
I'd just like to add to that sometimes, sometimes for whatever reason, it's just not possible to still your mind. It's always possible to spill your mind. It happens all the time. But in those cases, it's I think it's helpful to look at it as okay, what's the most loving thing to do here, including loving to yourself.
Exactly.
What's the most loving thing to do in this situation? But some of the Christians would say, what would Jesus do? Those are good. good compasses to use.
Thank you for that. That's really important, because true giving doesn't cost you anything. And if you're feeling like it's costing you something, then you gotta like, okay, maybe this isn't the right thing for me to do. But what can I do? But also not to be afraid to stretch a little bit in consciousness. So we are the ones who will turn the world around. We really are. We're the ones. We're the light workers. We're the ones that will bring the light. We are the ones that will bring in a new age. We're going to bring in the new heaven, the new earth. And it's going to be an exciting journey.
And by we, you mean all of us here in this room, all of us listening online?
Yeah, exactly.
Not
Right.
just you.
There's only one of us here
All.
according to the course. So if, the more each of us brings in that consciousness of love, others will join.
The more love there is.
Because that's what people are attracted to.
Multiplies.
It multiplies, it does. Well, thank you for attending our workshop, and March 3rd will be our next workshop. Assuming you want that, I take it.
Yes, I love
Okay.
this.
Yes.
I'm interested in your spinster thing too, if you're
Okay.
open to us writing down there.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Seb.
March 3rd is the next one?
March 3rd is the next Course in Miracles workshop. And I think I'm going to talk about that elevator and that button.
That's good.
Let's hit that help button. See what Spirit has to say.